Welcome to Health Now from WebMD. I'm your host, Carrie Gann. Today, we're diving in to learn more about inflammatory bowel disease, a condition that affects about 3 million U.S. adults. Our guest, who was diagnosed with the condition in his early teens, describes what it's like to manage this lifelong condition and what helps him stay in control. First, though, take a second and make sure you've subscribed or followed or favorited Health Now wherever you're listening to podcasts. Thank you. Okay, let's get started. Earlier this month, we marked World Inflammatory Bowel Disease, or IBD, Day. IBD is an umbrella term for two diseases that affect your digestive system: Crohn's disease, which causes inflammation, and ulcerative colitis, which causes ulcers or sores. We wanted to talk to someone who knows firsthand what it's like to live with one of these conditions, so we asked an expert, Joe Kabuchi, who's lived with Crohn's disease for a few decades by this point. Joe, welcome to Health Now.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
First, let's talk about Crohn's disease. And the short definition I just gave really doesn't capture what this disease is actually like. So how would you describe it?
Well, I would describe it as a disease that a lot of people feel like they don't want to discuss. They feel like it's something they can't be open about. And so one of the reasons why I appreciate you asking me to be on today is to enlighten the public on Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease, for me, has been challenging, and it can be challenging for all of our patients out there. But the one thing that I would like, the general fact about Crohn's disease, is that it can affect anywhere from your mouth all the way down to your anus. And it can be debilitating at times. It can be stressful at times, and you can feel isolated at times. But it can be ebb and flow. And for myself, it has been an ebb and flow for the many, many years. It's one that you can live with.
And Crohn's isn't a condition you can just take a pill and forget, is it? You have to be vigilant on several fronts, from what you eat to keeping track of the bathrooms when you go out in public, bringing a change of clothes with you. Can you tell us how it affects your life on a daily basis?
Those are really good points. Is one thing I would say about having Crohn's disease is that you are very aware of your body, and you're always constantly thinking about, like you mentioned, where are the restrooms? Should I have an extra pair of clothes? Should I go to an event? Should I allow myself to have a good time? And that's in the back of the mind often of us patients. But a daily day for me is having those thoughts, but also being, okay, I can do this. I can live a life. I'm not alone. There's other folks that are like myself, and preparing is what is one of the things that I've done. And I know a lot of other inflammatory bowel disease patients do with themselves.
And just so we're clear, tell us what some of the symptoms are, or some common symptoms that people with Crohn's disease will experience.
Everyone is a little different with this disease, since it all affects us all in so many different ways. But for myself, I would say that frequency is a challenge for me, is just having to use the restroom many, many times a day, and always being aware of that. And then also thinking about, should I be eating something? Because if I'm going somewhere, am I going to be able to find a restroom? Another thing is urgency, is having to go to the bathroom a lot and having it come on quickly, and the anxiety along with that, and making sure that I know where a restroom is at a party, at a restaurant, on a vacation, constantly thinking of having to use the restroom and the worries that way. And sometimes you can deal with fatigue. You could be exhausted if you just think, if you're going 10, 12, 15 times a day, the restroom, and it can be exhausting. And, the stress of all of that. So it can be painful, it can be debilitating. And then there's days where, you can feel great and you could be optimistic, and all the challenges you may have the day before may not be happening to you that day. So again, it's individual, but those are the things that I've dealt with more like over the many years.
Right. And Crohn's disease is one of these conditions that you have periods of flares where your symptoms are a lot worse, and then it kind of goes into remission a little bit and you have better days, like you're referring to.
definitely there are times where you feel 100%. And then there's times that you obviously don't. Having a chronic illness that's lifelong, you just have to deal with the ebb and flow. So stress plays an enormous part for me. So when things are heightened stress, this last year dealing with the pandemic, all of us have had a new world, and folks that have inflammatory bowel disease like myself adds another layer of concern and stress. So stress plays a part. Eating, for me, some foods may be an issue. Sometimes they're not an issue. So it's a daily challenge. And it's one that is always in the back of your mind.
You were quite young when you noticed that something was going on with your health. How old were you, and what were the signs that you started noticing?
You are correct. I was young. I was very young, fun, always interested in sports. I was a young kid and just lived in a neighborhood that my family home was next to the swim and tennis club. The pool was there. All my friends in the neighborhood were there. Lots and lots of great memories as a child. But one of the things that really was challenging is all of a sudden just having accidents, not realizing how to go to the bathroom and then basically soiling myself. And that started around 11
Oh
and kind of
boy.
went away a little bit, and then really came back in a vengeance when I was turned 13. And it lasted for quite a few years where I was homeschooled and just was dealt a bad hand, as they say at that time.
That must have been so difficult at that age to discover you have this health condition that you'll have to manage for the rest of your life. What was that like, and how did it affect, the normal things that you're supposed to do as a kid, like, playing with your friends or going to school or things like that?
I think what it really did for me was just add a layer of anxiety about always feeling stressed out, especially having to run to the restroom or have to go to the bathroom or not let anybody know I have to go to the bathroom, or if I had a soiled experience in my shorts or pants or school events. So it was challenging and so very limiting, to be honest, of what I was willing to do and what I wasn't willing to do. Fortunately, I grew up with great parents and a big family, and my eldest brother has ulcerative colitis.
I
So
see.
he is 8 years older than me. And when I was first having my issues, he was in college and he was having his challenges as well. So we kind of commiserated about it, but we didn't really talk about it that much because at that time, my physicians weren't as aware of Crohn's and colitis as they are now.
I imagine when you're a 11, 12, 13-year-old boy, dealing with a condition like this is probably really difficult when it comes to, your social life and explaining it to your friends and other family members too.
Exactly. I never explained it to my friends. I was just very secretive and didn't discuss it. It was just one of those things where they knew I didn't feel well, I wasn't around. But when you're a kid, you kind of just do your own thing and you have fun, and sometimes you don't realize that some folks are around or not around. So it was isolating. I'm not going to lie. Luckily, I had good family and good parents, and had the ability to have conversations with teachers and let them know there's some challenges going on, and that if I needed to exit the classroom and run to the restroom, it was okay. So, thinking about planning like my parents did and helping me think, and I know really made things a little better. But as time goes by, things go quickly. And in my middle teens and later years in high school, things were actually better. So things kind of got better. And then it kind of revisited my world again in my later teens and early 20s. So it's been a journey.
How long did it take for you to get a proper diagnosis?
Fortunately enough for me, having my older brother having issues, we had a physician that was recommended, and we saw him. But at first, they thought that I was having kind of psychological problems, to be completely transparent, because I was
Wow.
so concerned about not leaving the house or not going places because I was so anxious about not finding a restroom. And my mother and father were like, no, something else is wrong here. And so then they really were, by my side. So it took a while, to be honest with you, to find the right physician and one to listen. And I think that's what's so great about now for the newly diagnosed patients is that there's a larger voice for the community, that there are physicians, again, coast to coast, and that are willing to have the conversation or send you to a specific specialist that handles your disease. So it's a better time to have the disease versus years ago.
And probably better opportunities to connect with other people who have the condition as well and hear, their advice just from living with the disease.
Exactly. As someone who is, I hate to say, but in my middle 50s in a good way, very fortunate. But I would say that being a volunteer for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation for many years and actually being a staff person for the foundation and learning all the many things to get involved with and the support groups and the Camp Oasis, which is a camp for young adults and children who have Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, to be able to go there for a week-long summer camp and just be yourself and talk about anything, and being open is really one of the things that I think will help all the folks that are living with the disease now and getting diagnosed now.
So based on your experience, what advice would you give to someone who's just been diagnosed with Crohn's disease?
Well, I would say, and hopefully they hear my voice or someone like me around the world, is that you're not alone. It may be disease that you're frightened of, that you are concerned about, that you are, where your life's going to take you. You can do anything in your life. You will be able to experience all the joys and all the yearnings that you want to do. So, you will be concerned about being diagnosed with a lifelong disease. But guess what? It's not the worst thing in the world, because there are people to help you. There are wonderful physicians, clinicians, researchers. So what I would suggest is to build a solid relationship with your caregiver, of course, be open and honest, find a physician, make sure that physician's listening, explain your issues, your concerns, have questions that you want answered, and be a part of it, of your disease. And, that's what I would suggest, is start with that, is to make sure that you have the right physician.
I want to talk a little bit about the treatment options for this condition. Have you been lucky with medications, or has there been a lot of trial and error in finding something that works?
Yeah, I would say, again, one thing about these diseases is everybody's different and every medication works differently for everyone. For me personally, I definitely have had taken just about every medication there could be on the market, since considering that I've had the disease for 40 plus years. And there are phenomenal medications out there. And every day there's a new one coming along that's really specialized in helping the patient community. So for me, I definitely have had a variety of medications, but getting kind of back with that, building that relationship with your physician and your clinician and talking to your caregivers is making sure you find the right medication for you.
And what are some of the things that you're balancing when you're figuring out if a medication is right for you or not?
Well, there's all different types of medications, and it depends on the disease state and which one is best for that specific time throughout your disease. So again, it's really one where having that open dialogue and be willing to have the conversation and not overlooking the disease when you feel great and not just only focusing on when you feel bad, is that you need to, with having a chronic illness, it's one where you have to pay attention to your body and listen to your body and listen to your physicians to make sure that you're on track with the medication you are going to be taking.
Where would you say you are now in terms of having your Crohn's under control?
Every day I was one day for the next. Some days I feel like I'm like the top of the world, and some days I'm like, oh goodness, I fear something's coming along. So currently I'm feeling great.
That's
I've
good.
really trying to, yes, thank you for asking and saying that, is that, I'm trying to find a balance for me. And one of the things is a combination of rest and drinking proper fluids and getting exercise and having time with friends and family and putting myself in the mix. So I would say for our patient community that's out there is, make time for yourself. And, when you don't feel well, find time to relax. Try to eat well, try to make sure you intake enough water. All those things can play a part into your disease state. And sometimes it's worse than others. It is what it is. Sometimes it is going to be worse, and sometimes it's going to be better. And right now, I'm feeling great.
Well, that's really good. I'm so glad to hear that. And you mentioned quite a few things there that can really play a role in how your disease is going currently. You mentioned food, you mentioned exercise, staying hydrated, keeping stress to a minimum. I'm sure there are many other things that you've probably discovered over your years that make a difference in how you feel. Is there one that you find is consistently something that will always either help you get through a flare, or something that's really kind of surprised you and how it's tied to your condition?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I believe for myself is when there's so much added stress that I neglect a lot of other things that are going on, maybe not eating well or not sleeping well or not exercising or not just taking some downtime. So trying to find some quiet peace, whatever that may mean for somebody. Somebody could like loud music and that makes them relax. Sometimes maybe taking a walk, some, watching Netflix, whatever it works. But for me, it's just really trying to find some quiet time, enjoying some rest, and that helps. Now, does it help when I'm ultimately in a flare that's needing additional medication? It can play a part into it. Sometimes our bodies are what they are, but for me, is managing my stress is really one that if I don't do that well, it kind of everything else kind of crumbles.
Right. You definitely notice when you haven't been keeping your stress under control. I understand that one thing that helps you keep your Crohn's under control is running, and that you've taken part in 54 marathons over the years, which is amazing. What does running do for you in terms of helping you feel well?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I can just be out. You get a pair of running shoes from wherever you live, whatever, store you like to buy your running shoes from, and you can just go at any speed, or walk, whatever works for you, run or walk. And you can be out in the elements and enjoy all of that. And for me, it's freeing. It helps me, calms me. It helps relieve stress. It's just something that I really enjoy. And I have done a lot of running over the years, lots and lots.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough a few years, 2019, to run this New York Marathon, which was a dream of mine.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it was just something I will always cherish. And having a chronic disease and one that get concerns about having to use the restroom, and to be able to run and also walk, part of it, I'm not gonna lie,
Well,
is just like an accomplishment for me. It's just something I love. Some people like to hear the other runners talking alongside them. I like to play my music and just, look in front of me and just see what I can do and how I can accomplish that goal. So yes, it's been phenomenal.
that's really incredible. When you tell other people living with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis that you have run 54 marathons, what is their response? I would think that people would be, inspired perhaps, or a little surprised, or I don't know. I'm curious what other people who have your condition, how they respond to that.
Yes, I would say people are definitely surprised. I will correct that it is. I've only done 7 marathons, most of them half marathons. So they're still combined together. That makes it a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's still a lot all the way around.
Even one marathon is a lot, let's be honest.
Exactly. I was fortunate enough a little over a decade ago to find the Crohn's Colitis Foundation, and they have a training program called Team Challenge. And Team Challenge is a walking, running, 5K, 10K, half marathon program. And myself being a runner and being a patient and found the foundation, I jumped into this program thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to do? And then I met a family of folks that looked like me, that talked like me, that had all the same problems that I had. But guess what? We all like to run and we like to be out together. And it broke that kind of barrier down for me that I could be just like everybody else. And from there, it just kind of went a little crazy. And that's where all these races kind of, the numbers went up year by year. And fortunate enough that I've been able to cross that finish line, and not only by myself, but with other inflammatory bowel disease patients as well.
That's really wonderful. I do want to talk about your job a little bit because I think it's rare to find someone who's made their condition into, their own calling, in a professional capacity. Your job, as you've mentioned with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, centers around this fitness fundraiser. So how did you sort of get to that path in terms of making this your career?
I fell in love with the foundation. It was a support group for me, something I didn't ever have throughout my years, and found a family that I could be open with. And then over 7+ years ago, a job came up in the Georgia chapter of the foundation that came up, and it was managing the Team Challenge Georgia team. And I was like, oh gosh, I think I need to apply for that. And I did, and it was truly one of the best things I've ever done. And met so many people from all different walks of life, and connected with them, and again became a family, and helped raise significant amount of money for the foundation to help us fund research, to have support programs, to bring a community together. So I found this job, and it kind of fell into my hands, and then I just kind of ran with it. And I've moved up in a variety of roles over the years, and worked with many different clients from a variety of different companies as well. And it's been a journey. And I currently work for our business development department, and work with small business partners and different companies that want to work with the foundation as well, on fitness programs, on programs that the foundation has. So a decision I made years ago, by going to a Team Challenge information meeting to hear about running and the disease, changed into a lifetime, and a way to have my calling come to me and to help other people like myself. So it's a joy.
That is definitely a calling for sure. That it was definitely your destiny to find that job.
Exactly.
And if people are interested in joining or getting involved or finding out more, is there a place they can look online for that information?
Definitely. I think when you have an opportunity, all the folks out there, is to go to crohnscolitis.org. There's a phenomenal website on a variety of different topics. If you want to, read more about being newly diagnosed, then there's a section for patients and caregivers. One part of the website I think is important and valuable for our newly diagnosed patients is to go to the IBD Help Center. There's a section of the website where you can connect with resources. You can also call and have a live chat with a specialist, and they can answer a lot of questions for you. So I would highly suggest to check out crohnscolitisfoundation.org and look for IBD Help Center. That would be one of the places I would start with. If you want to get involved in your local community and do a run, or be part of one of our local Take Steps walks, if you want to join our indoor cycle event called Spin for Crohn's and Colitis Cures, there's a way to get involved there. If you're not into those kind of fitness activities, and you just want to hear and read more about the foundation, all the phenomenal things that it's doing, check out the website. There's lots to peruse through, and we are here, just like myself, we're all here to make your lives better. It's our mission. We want to find a cure for Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, and it is in reach. At some point we're going to get there, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my story with you, and also give the opportunity for folks that are out there to look up the website, find what works for them, get connected with their local physicians, make sure you're on track with what works best for you in your life. Remember, you can do everything. Don't let a chronic disease like this stop you. You will have ups and downs, but there are good days ahead and some hard days ahead, but you have somebody here to have your back.
For anybody who's listening who doesn't have one of these conditions, but maybe they know someone who does, are there any ways that you would encourage those people to really serve as an effective support system for their family member, friend, loved one? What are some of the ways that they can really make a difference for someone who's living with this condition?
Well, the caregiver community is so important and valuable to a person with a chronic disease. So listening is that right there is a great word, listening to the person that's having the challenges. Be their rock. It's not hard to always have someone who doesn't feel well in your life, but having somebody that has the patient's back is very helpful. Also being a caregiver, you as need help yourself. So finding their support groups that are not only for patients, but they're for caregivers. There's online resources. There's many opportunities to make sure that the caregiver is taken care of too, and which is valuable and important because they play an integral part in the person with a chronic disease. So getting involved with the community, with the foundation, with your loved one. And also sometimes just getting back to that we said a moment ago, is that having that listening side to them is very helpful.
That's great information. Joe Kabuchi, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you telling us about your experience.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And remember, brighter days are ahead. You're not alone. We're here to help.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us today. Hope everyone has a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.